So how do you respond, not react to the narcissist? That's what I'm going to help you with, because when you're in a relationship with a narcissistic person, it's painful, and you're probably walking on eggshells because they tend to be quite abusive and they tend to gaslight us a lot. So in this video, I'm going to share how you can stay calm and respond to them without reacting or slipping into self-doubt. But first, my name's Michelle Ferris if you're new, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I love helping people create relationships that work. So the first thing I want to go over is, what is a narcissistic codependent relationship? It's basically a dysfunctional relationship where there's a narcissist that has an inflated sense of self and they need to be admired and right all the time, and the codependent person that tends to have a deflated sense of self and they neglect themselves for giving, helping, fixing other people. So it's kind of a dysfunctional match made in heaven, but it's a really painful one that you can lose yourself in really easily, which is why I'm doing this video. So the first thing I want you to do in this type of relationship to respond is to take a pause. I want you to take a few breaths as they enter the room, because what this is going to do is it's going to get you into your body and focus on what you need to focus on, which is yourself and your own stress level and your own tolerance level. Because part of not reacting is paying attention to what you need for yourself. So that breath is gonna get you into your body, and it's also gonna do another thing. It's gonna tell you what you need. Because as you take that breath, if they're chirping at you, calling you names, making you feel bad about yourself, giving you a million questions, asking you where you are, and you're starting to get nervous, if you're focusing on your breath, you're going to notice how you feel emotionally, and that's going to tell you what you need to do next. Whether that's say something, leave the room, do something to take care of yourself. But if you're not paying attention to how you feel with a narcissist, you're going to lose yourself really fast. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to identify those common narcissistic behaviors that your partner or your loved one has. So one of them might be that they gaslight you, which means that they make you doubt who you are by questioning, well, I don't think it happened that way. I don't know what's wrong with you, but I remember it this way. Or I don't know where you're coming from or where you were that day, but this is really what happened. So comments like that are classic gaslighting from a narcissist. And what I want you to do is recognize some of those abusive behaviors. Maybe another one is leaving guilt trips, making you feel guilty for leaving, or seeing your family or friends because they want to control your time, okay? Now, in your own relationship, some of these are going to be unique, but some of these are very common in narcissistic relationships. And what's going to happen is the more you get familiar with what those behaviors are, in fact, right now, if you could pause this video and write down what are 5 common behaviors that your narcissist does to you to make you feel bad about yourself or to doubt yourself, that's going to help you a lot. Because as you familiarize yourself with these behaviors, that's going to help you dictate what you're going to do next to take care of yourself. Now, if this is feeling familiar to you, I want you to say "me too" in the comments, because you're not alone. There's a lot of people suffering in narcissistic relationships, and I'm so glad you're here getting the help you need. Another thing you can do to respond, not react, is I want you to name their narcissistic abusive behavior. So I helped a client do this about a month ago, and it really helped. And you could name it the tornado. That could be an example, because you know it's intense, it comes without warning, because that's going to help you depersonalize it. Because a narcissist's behavior is incredibly painful, incredibly abusive, but it's also something you need to flag as soon as possible so that you can protect yourself. And labeling it a tornado really helps us not take it personally, because one of the things the narcissist does with us is they make us feel like everything's our fault, which makes us stay in it because we feel like it's up to us to improve the relationship rather than them stop gaslighting us. So find a term to name those narcissistic behaviors and use that term as a reminder when you recognize these behaviors so that you can not react but respond and take care of yourself. Now, before I get to the next one, you might be saying, well, why isn't she telling me what to say to the narcissist? Well, we're not there yet. Because part of what I want you to do is get yourself grounded so that you can respond. And part of that is doing this work internally first. So the next thing I want you to do is I want you to create some positive self-talk statements like, this is not about me, this is not my fault, just because they're upset doesn't mean I did anything wrong, I'm a good person, I don't need to change who I am for them. Things like that, because part of what happens in a narcissistic relationship is that they really are good at convincing us that we're the problem. And I don't want that for you. And one way around that is to use positive self-talk to remind yourself who you are. I am a good person. I am thoughtful and generous, no matter what somebody else says. Because again, the narcissist is going to make you feel bad about yourself so that you don't leave. And those statements are going to help ground you back to yourself. So now, what do you actually say to the narcissist? When they're upset, when they're complaining, when they're maybe even mad at you, the one thing I always recommend is find a grain of truth and feed it back to them. And what I mean by that is take one piece of what they're saying that does make sense to you and that does have some grain of truth and feed it back to them. This is part of reflective listening, where you're literally just going to say, I can understand why you're upset that I didn't do the dishes because I didn't do the dishes, and I get that that really annoys you. Now, in that comment, you're not throwing yourself under the bus, you're not making yourself at fault, you're not going to apologize, but you're going to agree with some vein of truth that they're saying. Now, if it isn't about you, this is going to be easier, because you can say something like, oh, I totally get why you're stressed because your boss has been chewing you out, and I can really imagine that that has been really hard for you lately, and I'm sorry you're going through that. So that's a way to just reflect back the feeling of what you think they might be feeling. So there's two ways to do this. You can either reflect back somebody's emotions, or you can reflect back somebody's content, somebody's words. This can really help the narcissist de-escalate, because if they have your attention, that's what they want. But I don't want you to sacrifice yourself in order to give that attention. If they're complaining about you, is there any grain of truth in what they're saying? And that's what I would have you speak to. Or if there is none and they're totally out of left field, then you could say, I totally understand why you're annoyed with me right now. I get it. Now, the caveat here is that I don't want you necessarily to stay in that dialogue with them if they're abusive. So way back earlier in the video when I said I want you to identify narcissistic behaviors, part of the reason I had you do that is because those behaviors are going to dictate when you have to leave the situation. Now, if they're name calling, if they're saying things that are really mean and hurtful, I don't want you to stay for that. I want you to absolutely leave. So what I want you to do is I want you to notice when that line is being crossed. So in a conversation, if they're upset but they're not being abusive yet, absolutely try finding the grain of truth and seeing if that empathy is going to help. But if they've crossed the line into name calling, making you feel bad, gaslighting, and all those abusive behaviors, I don't want you to stick around for that. That's when you have to excuse yourself and say, you know what, I need to go, I'll see you later. And if it's too much for you to say anything, then just quietly excuse yourself, and you could send a text and say, I'll be back later. You don't have to make a big thing of it, because part of being with a narcissist is you have to be able to have some boundaries, or they're going to walk all over you. And part of this video is I want to encourage you to know what your limits are with them, what those abusive narcissistic behaviors are that are going to tell you when you have to leave. And see how all this is starting to come together? Because if you can use your breath to stay centered, that's going to help you identify when you're uncomfortable. And by identifying those certain behaviors that are not okay with you, that's going to help you understand when you need to leave. Again, if there's a window of opportunity and you feel like they're still a part of the conversation and they're not being abusive yet, great. Try to find a grain of truth in one thing that they're saying without throwing yourself under the bus, because that's not okay. And I just want to say one more thing. It is very courageous of you to be watching this video. This is not easy. So the next step I want you to do is watch this video I have on, is your relationship codependent? Because that's going to help you further your healing. Thanks so much.